Hello, friends, loyal listeners, and bears everywhere. Welcome to our new episode of The Sound Barrier. That's right, Northeast State's official podcast. My name is Tom Wilson with the Office of Community Relations, and coming to you today from our Blunt campus. And today we are pleased to welcome Northeast State alumnus and United States Army veteran, Mr. John Adcox, who is joining us today here from the Veterans Affairs Office here on the Bluntville campus. John, welcome. How you doing?
Hey, doing well. Thank you, Tom.
How's your week been so far here this fall?
Busy as always. There's never a slow time, it seems like, which is good, though.
That's very good. Now you serve here at Northeast State as a coordinator in our Veterans Affairs office, and what are some of the things you do here to help veterans returning to school, returning here to Northeast State, or looking to enroll?
Well, actually, specialist.
Specialist. I gave you a promotion. And
hey, I do the work of a coordinator, so a lot of times that's all right. That's all right. But what do I do? What do we not do is the question. We started out when I first transferred over from college access programs. I worked in a grant program at the time. Transferred over to this office here in the Veteran Military Student Success Center, which Veterans Affairs at the time. Essentially, our main priority, school certifying official. That's my other part of my title, and what that is, I certify veterans, dependents for their GI Bill benefits. In other words, they come through. We're the first point of contact is either myself or Jessica Kelso. And we sit down with them, explain any benefits. We help them apply for their benefits. And we certify those benefits from then on. As long as they're a student here at Northeast State every semester with a liaison between the VA and Northeast State Community College. But in addition to that, we also help out with any admissions processes as far as the application, any where we both worked in admissions, we can do a lot of the work most of the work there in that office. Let's see, kind of like it's a holistic approach we take, a one-stop shop. We can help out with the basics and scholarships. We're also advisors, so we're trained advisors. And we also refer veterans or dependents to outside sources. It just depends. If someone's having, I can't tell you how many times fellow veterans came in the office and I just shut the door and we may talk for an hour, and that might be fine, just lending an ear. Sometimes I have to refer them to an outside source, so that's kind of the gist of it, and I'm sure I'm forgetting some things as well.
Right. Now, as a veteran yourself of the Army, is that how important is that for servicemen and women come in, they see you, they kind of know you share that common bond, and I know that's talked about often, but how important is that for them to kind of see that guy who's been there, who understands some of the challenges, transitioning, and so forth?
Sure. It's very important, I feel. Now, it's funny, when I first transferred to this department, I'd been out of the military for 95. Mm-hmm. I thought, I wasn't a guy who self-identified as a veteran. To me, it was something I'm very proud of. It's part of my identity. But that's just the way, that's how I am. That's who I am. So I came into this office and I thought, well, these guys and gals, they can't relate to me. I'm an old man in their eyes. But here's what I learned. Although all veterans, all of our experiences are different, you can take someone with the same job you had, the same MOS, military occupational specialty, and depending on where they served, if they were deployed, whatever the case, they're going to have different experiences. However, we got that common bond. Mm-hmm. That transcends years. That transcends generations, honestly. So here I am. I'm in my 40s. You may have someone who just got out of the Army or Marine Corps, whatever the case, last year, and there's that bond. There's that camaraderie right off the bat. They hit, okay, you're a veteran. Where did you serve? What was your MOS? Mm-hmm. That always gets it going. And it's really important. It's really important. Although I served in a different era, doesn't matter. They really just to have that to add to that, the fact that I had been in their shoes as far as the transition, right. That's huge. I've been where they've been. Started out here at Northeast State on the GI Bill, the Chapter 30 Montgomery, and went on to earn a bachelor's degree eventually.
That's right. Now you're also an ETSU alumnus.
Yes, sir.
Well.
Yes, sir.
Now what compelled you to join the military when you were thinking about it? What was there a deciding factor, or did you just think, hey, there's something I want to challenge, the challenge I want to try?
Well, to be quite honest with you, I always had, growing up, I always had this, I'm a first generation college student. So, education wasn't pushed in my home growing up, but my mother and father, they both, it was them. I said, you have to do something. You're gonna. Back in those days, you could still go to work with a high school diploma, but my choices were high school. College, or go to work wherever. And I knew I didn't want to work in a factory. Nothing wrong with that, but that wasn't what I wanted to do. And as far as college went, I had this dream of playing baseball. Played my whole life. And when I realized that wasn't going to take place, that wasn't going to happen, a recruiter, I'll never forget, I went to Sullivan North High School, where I graduated from. And I remember one day I was in the Fort Henry Mall with a friend. We left school early that day. I'm going to tell myself here. We skipped school, We're walking around the mall. Lo and behold, here comes some Army recruiters and Sergeant Houck, actually. This was in 91. And they just came right up to us. They realized we should have been in school, but they start talking to us. And plus, my father was a veteran. He served in the Korean War, and that side of the family, the Adcox side of the family, everyone went in the Marines except for me and my father. So that was always interesting. They're all career Marine veterans. So I guess Dad and I were the black sheep of the family,
Interesting. So they actually, you met recruiters in the mall, Fort Henry Mall.
Yes, sir.
Wow. Now was that? Now you mentioned it was the Marine, very much a traditional Marine side of the family. Did the Army just seem appealing, or it was just something different about them?
I guess being 17, I was 17 at the time and impressionable. I thought, wow, these were the first people to talk to me. No other branch even crossed my mind. Now, I will say, the Marine Corps, I gave it some thought. I will say that. But I wasn't 100% sold. I still wasn't sure what I was going to do. And the Army the Army recruiter just happened to be there, right place, right time, and they talked to me, gave me their card. They got me interested, and I joined on the delayed entry program. So that was my junior year of high school, and I went down to the MEPS in Knoxville, and the rest is history. I left June 10th, 1992 for basic training in Fort Jackson, South Carolina.
How long were you active duty?
It was a total 3 year, little over 3 years and some change. My actual enlistment for active duty back at the time, it was a 2 year. I want to say 2 years and 6 months. Mm-hmm. So I always tell people I served 3 years, actually a little more, and that's true. Mm-hmm. But at the time, my dad said, go for the lowest enlistment. That way, if you don't really decide to make a crowd of it, hey, it's not as long, a little bit short. And I did that. Best time of my life looking back on it. So I did the active duty stint, got off, came back here to Northeast Tennessee, and one of the things I did, I had joined the reserve unit. It was optional, because what it is you have, I want to say it's an 8-year obligation, 7 or 8 years I believe, no matter if you join 3 years, 6 years, whatever the case. Mm-hmm. So once you come off active duty, you can be in active ready reserves, where you're just basically they contact you once a year to check up on you. You're subject to recall up until that 8 years ends. Right. But I went into the reserves. It was the 7244th over in Johnson City at the time, and did that for a while. And finally, I thought, well, if I'm going to stay in, if I want to wear the uniform, I'm going to go back on active duty. Mm-hmm. And so I told them to put me on inactive ready reserve, which they did. I had that option, and actually almost went back on active duty in '99. Oh, but wow. I decided not to. That was my then wife. Remarried since then. Basically, she said I'd go by myself if I went. So that kind of put a damper on things. And honestly, that's a good thing, because my daughter was born actually a couple years later. Right. So best thing ever happened to me there.
Oh yeah, I'm sure, without a doubt. Mm-hmm. What was your? Now you mentioned military occupation specialty, mm-hmm. MOS.
MOS.
And say, what was your MOS follow on it?
Gotcha. At the time, I was a medical specialist. At the time, that was 91 Bravo. Now that was the designation, 91 Bravo. That has since changed, though. And I learned that with this job, and all the folks I serve with, the fellow medics and the units we've mm-hmm. kept in touch, like, hey, 91 Bravo is not a medic now. I think it's light wheel mechanic. I learned it from these guys and gals that come in. They change it to 68 whiskey. And in the job, like the AIT, or Advanced Individual Training, after basic, it was 10 weeks for medics back then. I want to say, and don't quote me on this, it's longer, and they learn a lot more than even we did back then. So, yeah, and as far as the medical, it's funny. I went to MEPS in Knoxville, and took the ASVAB test, and I had, I want to say 40 jobs offered to me roughly, and for some reason medical specialist stood out. Never would have dreamed that in my life, but they sure did make it sound like I was working in a hospital, but that wasn't the case at all. I was in field units the whole time just about, so yeah.
Now, was that a challenge? I'm sure that was a challenge to do medical care in a field setting. Is that's a shock to the system?
It's totally different. When I arrived at Fort Carson, Colorado after basic and AIT, that was in October. It's amazing I remember this stuff. October of 1992. I went after reception. I went straight to 10th Cash Combat Support Hospital. I only stayed there 3 months. They needed medics down in different units, in the line units and the forward support units. So yeah, I went there and I thought, I can remember 10th Cash was, you're basically working in a troop medical clinic. There's a lot. It's a totally different setup.
Right.
Too long to explain. But I went from that setting where you essentially never go to the field. If you do, it's like 1 week out of the year to set up the hospital, and then you tear down and go back. Well, I left that unit and I go to 4th Forward Support. And I'll never forget, we go down on a deuce and a half. That's a truck, 2.5 ton truck.
Right.
We go down on the deuce and a half, throw all our stuff in the back of it. We get there, and it's literally like a mile and a half down the road. I mean, I could have walked down there. We get there, and I'll never forget my squad leader, and he's like, "Okay, we got to get you licensed on a track." I was like, "What's a track?" So what that is basically a 577 track. And I thought, I was completely had no idea. Okay, why am I being licensed on this? Maybe a Hummer or a deuce and a half, whatever. But a track, well, I would learn not 2 months later why I drove a track. Essentially, you go in the field. You may go out to southern Colorado, Pinyon Canyon. You may go downrange Carson. NTC, National Training Center, Fort Irwin, California. Everybody who's serving the Army is almost, I guarantee you, most people you meet are going to say, "Oh, yeah, I've been to NTC." So you're in the field, you're in the desert, essentially a desert setting for a month. Little personal hygiene, that's non-existent. Sleep deprivation. You're basically practicing what you would do in a combat situation that entire time. So that track, I learned that my job as a medic in that particular setting in the treatment platoon was to provide medical care, keep the casualty alive. You transport them from basically, if you were in combat, from the front lines to the aid station, the forward support unit, the battalion aid station. Right. And then they would go into the cash unit. It's pretty interesting how it works. Keep in mind, that whole time you're in a field setting, you're practicing what you would do, but we had what was called real world casualties because of our MOS. So people, and nothing I could have experienced since people died in training. It happens. We've seen all manner of injuries. It's wild, and you're out there practicing, essentially being graded on your job and what you would do in a real setting, combat setting, and you still have to conduct sick call and take care of casualties, real world casualties, basically. So it's interesting. It's a
holy cow! Yeah. What an experience!
Yeah, and that's just a little sample of what I told you.
Goodness. Now, you mentioned a little bit about separation earlier. What was the biggest adjustment for you when active duty kind of ended? I know you were still in the reserves, but what's the transition like coming off active duty back to, I guess, the civilian world, if you can call it?
Absolutely. Oh wow, it's something else. And think, I did one enlistment. I served one enlistment. I can't imagine these guys that they make a career out of it, and it was tough for me. It took me, I'll say this, you're part of this team. You're part of this. It's your identity. Imagine 18 years old, 2 weeks after you graduate high school. You go into this world, you talk about culture shock. You're sitting there thinking, wow, I'm basically like, what have I got myself into? Why did I do this? But that's just basic. And is it progressed as you went on? And then I got to my active duty station. This isn't too bad, especially when you start making a little rank and you're part of this team concept. It's essentially, imagine a job where, you work. Now, when we weren't in the field, we're on post, we're in garrison, I worked in the battalion aid station. Imagine you go in, you do PT 0600, 6 in the morning. 6, what was it, to about 7:30, have time to shower, go grab chow at the chow hall, grab some breakfast, then you go to the aid station to work. You get off at 4:30. So you get off at 4:30, you have formation. Imagine if you left Northeast State and your boss can come knocking on your door and say, hey, you need to come back to, it could be midnight, didn't matter.
Right.
I've had that happen many times. Something in the motor pool, that's the other thing. Those vehicles that we drove, we were responsible, even though we had mechanics. If the mechanic had to work on your vehicle, you had to be there to essentially be his gopher. It didn't matter if you were there all night. You had to be there to help him. Grab this for me, grab that. I need your assistance here. So you're part of that team. You're part of that this unit that, it's your life. It's your identity. You step away from that, you feel like you're out here on an island. You were used to this lifestyle where everybody had a common goal, a common, mission, and then that's it. You're done by choice. So it was different. It was difficult.
Is that I guess now, especially this next generation who've been in combat for so long, for many who have been combat deployed.
Yes.
Is that still, do you hear a lot of that when they come through? Is it a lot of the same things?
Even tougher. A lot of guys and gals have come through and they'll want to, here's what I've noticed, and I was the same way, you just can't, it's funny, you miss that life, so that was your identity, but at the same time, it's almost like, I've seen guys like, I don't want anything to do with it, I don't want to hear anything about it. You see that. That's part of the transition, and what I've noticed, my personal experience was, over the years, that's been a long time ago, and like I said, I'll never forget those days. But now I look back, and it's nostalgic, and I think, man, this was one of the greatest times of my life, and I didn't even realize it, how good it was. And to give you an example of the camaraderie, I went back last summer, June of 19, to Colorado Springs, right, Fort Carson. We had a reunion. There was about 20 people showed up from Charlie Company, 4th Forward Support. I get teary-eyed thinking about it sometimes because those people are family to me. That should right there, that's a good example of the transition, because it's like family. You may have some people like, I can't stand this guy, oh man, but they're still like family. You would die for them. You would do anything for them. That's the best way to put it. And to go back all those years later, it was surreal. I got to actually go back on post. And remember, I left there around 95. 2019, the barracks had been rebuilt, but the buildings we worked in, the battalion aid station, battalion headquarters, company headquarters, those buildings were still there. The chow hall was still there, and those buildings were old when I was there, right? They were in the 70s, built in the 70s.
Still standing.
The basketball court we played on every day after work looked like the same rims, man. That stuff was still there, I promise you. I thought, wow, I'm walking around with Harry Wood, Sergeant Wood, and I'm like, can you believe this? This is so crazy. And I never forget, he goes, man, Adcox, this is like Field of Dreams. I was like, yeah, but we're still alive, right? I said, darn well, it was a Sunday, and I'm just going to be honest with you, you have your fun when you're in the military,
Oh, yes.
And it was a weekend. Sunday, I said, I guarantee you there's some private looking out his window right now in those barracks saying, what's those two old guys doing walking around and taking pictures? But it was really awesome to go back to where I really became a man,
Wow. Now, how did you kind of find your way here to Northeast State after you graduated from ETSU? How did you kind of make your way here to Northeast State to join the team here?
Oh, interesting story. So, I came out of when I left active duty, I had a plan. Should have had a backup plan, but essentially, I went to Northeast State. I went off and on. Life situations happened. So I should have, in hindsight, I should have just went right through. Heck, I should have went on and got my master's degree. But what happened? I came here, first associate's AAS in history. Took me, had some things happen. Went to Walter State one semester. Mm-hmm. Came back here, married, remarried. Jobs changed here and there. But here's the thing about being just my personality and also being a veteran: persistence, tenacity. I was not going to stop. No matter what life threw at me. And essentially, I started working here my second go-around. I was working on my early childhood ed, university parallel degree. I started working in Trio, and actually, let me think back. I had finished up here because it was my second go-around. I had all my core classes out of the way. Went on to ETSU, knocked it out, did great, did great. Was working in Trio as a master tutor, was a contract tutor, was a master tutor. That sounds good, don't it? Master tutor.
Master tutor.
Master tutor. But I was a tutor going to ETSU. And when I finished up my bachelor's, and I was in my 30s, I went back a second time. Mm-hmm. So what I did, I'm coming down the home stretch, and I decided I didn't want to teach elementary school. So I did the interdisciplinary study, did that for one semester, earned my bachelor's. It was supposed to go on and start my master's, but I did not. And the reason I did not, I was thinking, okay, I just earned my bachelor's, I can go ahead. Well, this opportunity came up. I skipped something. I went from Trio to college access programs. That department no longer exists. We were a grant-funded program. I was a college mentor. Went to all the Washington, Tennessee high schools. And essentially I was a mentor and helped kids, students transfer and anything and everything from their senior year to college or university. Right. And this opportunity came along when I finished up my bachelor's. I applied and I made the right decision. I really did, because I was like, wow, what am I going to do when this grant runs out? And I just so happened, myself, Melissa Ramsey, and Ashley Pierce were the last three left from college access programs.
That's right.
Yep, and haven't regretted it since. Got a great team here, great team.
Yeah, no, I know we both fondly recall the lady that did this, did a lot of Veterans Affairs, Miss Pat Chandler.
Yes, sir. Great lady.
She has since retired, but now I know she coordinated it for a long time. But when she was here when you came over,
absolutely,
right? How much did she teach you about the side of how college works?
Man, let me tell you. So Pat Chandler, just to show you what type of lady she is and how she remembers things. And I mean, my memory's terrible, and I'm 40, soon to be 47. Pat, I came through here, and remember that was in the 90s. Came through here, she took me through the process, told me what I need to do with my GI Bill, got everything going, and she was instrumental. Fast forward to 2014. That's when I started in the Veterans Affairs, Veteran and Military Student Success Center. Pat, I thought, I can specifically remember thinking, oh, wait a minute, Pat Chandler. And I remember I was working at college access programs, but I was at the Gray campus. That's where my office was. Mm-hmm. And we never really came to the main campus. I thought, I bet she doesn't even remember me. Mm-hmm. She remembered something. This stood out. This is awesome. I go by Matt away from here. My name's John Matthew. Mm-hmm. But everybody here, thanks to Raylene Stewart, another great lady, she kept calling me John, and that's why that stuck. Pat knew me as Matt. Mm-hmm. So I was like, the first time I met her, my new boss, and Jessica Kelso was my boss as well, like, you probably don't remember me. She goes, why do you go by John? She goes, you're Matt. I was like, wow. How did she, that's 20 years later almost. How did she remember that? That was huge. That was big to me. I thought, wow, this woman really cares. Shows you what she has a heart for, what she does. She remember, and I would learn in the years, even to this day, we have lunch with her once a month. Pat's like a second mother to me. Pat remembers students from the 70s.
Oh yeah,
and it's awesome.
Yeah, one of my favorite people, one of the first people I met when I started here 15, 16 years ago, just a pillar of this college for so long.
50 years she worked here.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you all still have lunch with her and see her.
Yes.
I'd like to see her myself some. Now, switching gears here a little bit, sure. I understand you were a high school baseball player for some of our Sullivan County teams. Sullivan South, I believe Sullivan you started, South. And also Sullivan North.
Played briefly at North. Yeah, that was like a lifetime ago. Yes, sir. Love baseball. Love of baseball since I could walk. I could, like so many others. One of the first things my dad had me, I could barely walk. I'm out here hitting balls, and throwing it. And we moved around a lot. That's why I went to two. Dad was a Methodist minister, so, let's see, I was born in Johnson City, went to the Rock Springs community in Kingsport, Bristol, Shergoinsville, and then I wound up in Lynn Garden in Kingsport. Mm-hmm. But so, and I didn't, that was nothing. My brother and sister, man, they moved, it seemed like every 2 years from what they said. Mm-hmm. They're much older than me. But, went to Colonial Heights. I was living in Lynn Garden. It's funny. I was living in Lynn Garden. Dad moved from Shergoinsville to Lynn Garden, Ketter Memorial Methodist Church. My mother was a secretary at Colonial Heights Exxon. So to get a jump on things, they thought I would just ride with Mom Dad thought he was moving to Colonial Heights. That's where Colonial Heights, Memphis, where we thought we were going.
Right.
So they wanted to get me started in 7th grade at Colonial Heights. So I'm riding with Mom from Burgoynesville every day, going to Colonial Heights, playing ball still, and typical kid, and we wound up finding out in '87 we're moving to Lynn Garden. I was like, whoa. So we moved to Lynn Garden, and I just continued to go on to South. Played baseball my freshman, sophomore year. Transferred during the year, believe it or not, because it finally got to the point. It's like, wow, I live in this community. I loved, hey, it's always going to be home. I know people have their, Lynn Gardens. It's a rough place. Mm-hmm. It is. It was better. It wasn't as rough back then, but it's still a pretty tough place. And but it will always be home.
Right.
So I went to North, played briefly summer league there. And I just kind of lost interest. It's funny. I lost interest in about my junior year, and that's something I don't regret it. But I wound up playing later on softball, and when I was at Fort Carson, was asked to play on the post softball team. Had about 5 months left of my enlistment. I didn't do it, but I kind of wish I would have, because that was a big deal. Right. They would come watch the company teams play, and I thought, oh man, and that's okay. But I did that. I boxed while I was in the Army. That's something that was new to me, and just dabbled in it. And played a little amateur ball briefly. But baseball's always been. I love it. I still play softball, as you know.
Oh yes.
Don't know how, getting older, but I love it. I enjoy it. It keeps me young.
What's as far as it's been a long time called America's pastime and the Great American Game.
Sir.
Why is, just from your experience in it, both playing in high school and then even on in the military, how does that thread of that game kind of wind through our country? Because everybody plays it. It's really such an international game.
Wow. Mm-hmm.
Why does that seem to bind and bring people together, just from your experience?
That's a good question. Oh man, well, I mean, like I said, I get nostalgic thinking back as a kid. It's the oldest sport. I want to say, as far as 1800s Civil War, they say the origins began. During the Civil War, after, I can't remember right offhand, but I mean, it just goes back, and it transcends time. I mean, the game hasn't changed a whole lot, and I'm a traditionalist.
Right.
We could sit here and talk for an hour about the designated hitter and the AL versus the NL, and I'll eat that up, but I love that stuff. But it's wow, I can't hardly put that in words to think about it. It's just, the bonds that are father and son. I'm a huge Cubs fan. I used to get laughed at because of that when I was a kid. People were like, why do you like the Cubs? My dad lived in Chicago after he came back from the Korean War, worked in the steel mills in the 50s and 60s.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
okay.
A lot of people don't know that. And he went to his first baseball game at Wrigley Field.
Yeah.
So
a cathedral of baseball.
Yes, sir. The Mecca. That's the way I look at it. And, Dad, I can remember as a child, I had that love for the game. I could barely walk. He's out there having me hit balls and throw. And I can remember back then you had, TBS Superstation and, the Chicago station, WGN.
Chicago,
so Braves,
yes.
Braves, Cubs. I remember, I'm in first grade, I want to watch the Braves. No, you're not watching the Braves. You're going to watch, we're Cubs fans, And I can think back to things like that. I can think back to life lessons growing up, stuff I can remember from, Little League, Senior League, school, playing for the school, all those things. Man, it's just, it's wow. It transcends,
True. It's America's game.
Yes, sir.
It probably always will be, honestly.
I agree.
It will. Now, for veterans who are looking to return to college, if they have an interest in Northeast State, they kind of wonder what we offer. Where can they contact you and this office and kind of get the ball rolling, so to speak, as far as returning to college here at Northeast State?
Okay, where can they as far as our contact info?
Yes, sir.
Okay, gotcha. Sorry.
Yeah.
Well, JM Adcox, ADCOX at northeaststate.edu. You can email me, or you can simply call, either or, 423-354-2528. Jessica Kelso, my supervisor, her number is 423-354-2527. In addition, her email is jlkelso@northeaststate.edu. So feel free to contact us via email or phone. Or you know what? Just simply come by the office. Just come by. I'm in N111.
That's N111.
N111. I had to look. That's terrible. N111. We're in the N building, obviously, right beside the printing shop. And here's the thing. It doesn't matter if you're thinking you want to just learn about the GI Bill. If you have some questions, if you wind up coming a year from, if you go to another school, it doesn't matter. You're a veteran. Come on in. Mm-hmm. We'll help you. I'll walk you around campus. I've done that many times. So has Jessica. We'll give you the grand tour. So please come by and we'll answer any questions you have. Absolutely.
GI Bill, credit transfer that can be converted into college
joint
credit
service
hours.
Transcript, admissions processes. What you need. We've this holistic approach. We've been doing it for 7 years. And the reason we've done that, and that's why I think the concept of the Baird Inn and all that is really good because, we started this from going to conferences all over the country, starting 6-7 years ago, whatever the case, and also in Nashville. We talked to our peers from other colleges, school certifying officials, and we learned that that's the approach, that's the way everybody's going. Now, a lot of people will say, financial aid, a lot of financial, there's nothing wrong with that, but guess what? That's kind of taking a step back.
Right.
You don't want to do that. You don't want to do that. I'm a firm believer in that because at the time, now when I came through here, Miss Chandler was housed under, she was under the admissions, which we were when I first came to this office. But we take this holistic approach. The only thing, admissions, you name it, admissions process, you can go over scholarships. We know the basics are, we can go into detail. Most importantly, the GI Bill. The one thing we dabble in, and I will not say I'm an expert in by no means. Mm-hmm. God bless those folks in financial aid, man. I want to tip my cap to them. That's wow. I'll show somebody a FAFSA application. That's about it. I'll answer some questions. I'll leave that to the experts.
Hey, that's their office.
Yes, sir.
They do a fine job at it.
Yeah, they do. Outstanding job.
That's their specialty.
Yep.
All right, John. Now, are you ready for the Sound Barriers 3-question speed challenge?
Oh man, this is going to be like that Sammy road trip with Sammy Hagar. Have you seen that where they give you options, right? One or the other?
A little, yeah.
Oh man,
either or.
I'm no Sammy Hagar, but hey, that'll work.
We'll try it out here. All right. Question number 1: mm-hmm. Batman or Superman?
Batman.
Okay. Why so? Just Bruce Wayne.
Bruce Wayne. He had no special. He's just a regular human being. And he was fighting crime he didn't have no special powers or anything, but that always appealed to me. Just a regular Joe, except he had a lot of money, of course. But hey, nothing.
That was his superpower.
That was his superpower. I guess
money.
That would
be. Okay. Knowing you're a baseball guy, I'm sorry these are Cubs people, but Steve Carlton or Sandy Koufax?
Ooh, Steve Carlton.
All right. Yes.
Absolutely.
Old lefty.
Yep.
Do a
people
slider.
Forget about him. Yeah.
Scariest pitch I've ever seen outside Greg Maddox's snapback that would hit the corner of the plate.
Oh, every time, yeah. Carlton was the man.
Question number 3: mm-hmm. Falcon 9 or Mars rover?
I don't even know what those are. Is that not terrible, man? What is Falcon 9?
Falcon 9 is Elon Musk's reusable rocket system that he's using to send people into space. Mars rover is the little robot that NASA put on Mars that sends all the photos back.
Gotcha.
Yes.
Oh, wow. Man, well, I just showed my ignorance when it comes to the galaxy and NASA and whatnot. Can I say the Columbia Space Shuttle instead? That takes me back to my childhood.
Sure.
That stands out.
The Space Shuttle, yeah.
Yes, sir.
All right. You did well, sir. 3-question speed challenge. We have come to the end of this particular episode. John, thank you for joining us today, and we appreciate it very much. Veterans who are interested in Northeast State, you're looking at enrolling, thinking about it, you can visit northeaststate.edu/Veterans Affairs. That's the web page. Again, northeaststate.edu Veterans Affairs. You get a lot of great information there. You can also, of course, contact John or Jessica Kelso in our office. And as always, we want to thank our Entertainment Technology Department, Professor Will McMorrin and his students for helping make these episodes happen. Also want to thank our Department of Community Relations and Marketing for their work for the Sound Barrier. Now you can visit the Sound Barrier website at thesoundbarrier.net. That's thesoundbarrier.net, and smash that old subscribe button because we're on a lot of podcasts from Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Overcast, Stitcher. We're out there and on the air. But again, northeaststate.edu, northeaststate.edu. That's that's the college website. Check out the website. We got spring registration going on right now for the spring 2021 semester. So click those sites, hit the old subscribe button, and remember, Northeast State, we're here to get you there. We just might be what you're looking for. Thanks.